in order to educate the Democrats, because it's no longer that party. That ship sailed. There's a that ship is long gone. If you didn't have voter fraud in this country, by the way, we're 68% red, everybody. 68%.
Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live Workshop Play Show, and welcome to another beautiful weekend in the greatest state and the greatest country in the world. Why is Florida the model state to the rest of the world? The greatest place to live, work, shop, and play? It's because we have some of the greatest people leading our country, leading our state, and leading our communities that are fighting hard. They don't just come from Florida. As we know, many people are transplants from many different states. But we have to stay strong in Florida. We have to remember 49, we're one of 49 states. All of them are just as important as the other. And today I've got some great people joining me. I have got Kim Yeater from Take My Power Back in California. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe. It's great to be back with you.
Now, you're out in San Diego this morning, so it's very early.
Yes.
We're very excited to have you. We welcome you to come to Florida anytime. You're the type of people we want here in Florida.
I love me my Florida.
And then I've got another guest with me, and if you don't know who this guest is, you've been hiding under a bed. Well, Biden probably doesn't know who this guest is because he loves hiding in closets and under beds and places like that and in basements. But Mike Lindell with MyPillow. Mike, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Now, Mike, you made a lot of news a few years ago fighting about election security, and Kim and I did a show prior talking about elections and the security and stuff. You left a very prosperous business. You stepped away from it. You started focusing on the country. And as we've all found out, I was just speaking to a guy yesterday, and he was talking about doing an event at his business. And he said, man, I can't. People will start throwing bricks through it, attacking, coming at it. You suffered a lot of attacks, but you stood strong. You weathered a lot, and you brought out what we're now seeing is true. Georgia's under siege by the FBI for their election stuff that was going on. One of my good friends, Scott Hall, he was the bail bondsman that went in and filmed a lot of the videos of the election fraud. He actually sent me a video where somebody the next day got a bag of ballots unsecured out of their car, and they only had the president checked. Nobody else, and they were all Biden. None were for Trump. All are Biden. The chances of that happening is pretty slim. But tell us a little bit about what made you step from that private industry to go and put everything at risk.
Well, I didn't step from the private industry. I've spent the last 2 years, MyPillow was the most attacked company in the history of the world. It started in January of 2021 when all the box stores got canceled, and I'm raising my hand. Hey, we've got to get rid of the electronic voting machines. We've got problems with our elections. They're getting stolen, and it was massive. And I never stopped talking, so they went after my company to destroy it. And in the meantime, I built like Cause of America, 300,000 people strong. I put out movies, Absolute Proof, Absolute Interference. We had summits that planted seeds of everybody, seeds of hope that, hey, let's go back to our states and see what, because it was across the board, every state. But as I got attacked by the machine companies and sued with lawfare to shut up, then in 2022, Operation Arctic Frost was launched against MyPillow and many others in 9 centers, which actually was our own government attacking the FBI. Everybody knows when I got my phone taken at a Hardee's restaurant in Minnesota. Arctic Frost was the DOJ. This was Jack Smith. The DOJ, the FBI, and the IRS attacked me and MyPillow beyond anything. We got debanked, deplatformed, demerchant server. They went to our vendors to shut us down. And but yeah, I stayed, and not only fighting over here, but to keep MyPillow going over here. The last 2 years have been the worst, where they imagine a ship going on this. Floating ahead, trying to go ahead as it getting blown full of holes every day. And that's what I've been doing the last year and a half, is keeping MyPillow going, and also over here with all the election stuff. After the 2024 election, Everyone's going, Mike, you're vindicated. Donald Trump's in power. I'm going, no, they attacked. They turned it up even higher because I was the biggest threat to them to get rid of these voting machines, to get to paper ballots, to get to same-day voting. I turned that all into to the president and back in February. And as you see, the manifestation from that, everything you see that's pouring out now, like Georgia and others that are going to be coming out, we already had that 4 and 5 years ago. And so the attacks have not let up, but MyPillow is finally secure in a good place. It's not near what it once was, but it's in a good place, and where I'm able to actually step away finally now to be able to run for governor of the state of Minnesota. But this just happened 2 months ago. So where, and people say, well, Mike, you're, I went on CBS the other day and they said, Mike, well, isn't MyPillow bankrupt? No. It's not bankrupt. That's fake news. Well, didn't you lose $5 million challenge in your evidence? No, the 8th Circuit in Minnesota last summer overturned it and said Mike was right. And anyway, they in Minnesota running for governor, they come with this, Mike Lindell comes with baggage. Well, it's the same baggage that our president had. Yes, the elections were stolen, and I have all the receipts. And to me, it's a strength when you have a company. I have built companies from the ground up with nothing, with no money, just as an entrepreneur. The American dream, going from an ex-crack addict to where I am now. And then also taking a company that was attacked more than any company in the history of the world, bar none, and it's still standing. And that's that's kind of an overall picture of where things are now.
Mike, Senator Scott was on the show just not too long ago when we were talking about you and the bold movement. And you just said it. You broke the news that we were going to break. You're running for governor. And I said, Senator Scott, Mike's an amazing guy. I said, I got to talk to him and we spoke, and I said, he shared things that I didn't even know about him. I said, we tend to say we know the news is fake, but we tend to follow it and listen to it. And then there's always that thing, if there's smoke, there's fire, and I've had it happen to me. You've had it happen to you. Kim's had it happen to her. The biggest thing they come at you when you're an entrepreneur, they say, hey, we want businessman running our country. But then when you put a businessman in there, if you don't like what he says or he doesn't do what you want to destroy his business. And this is you want to destroy his reputation, his business. Well, Senator Scott said, Joe, you and Mike remind me of each other. Y'all live the American dream, the new American dream. And I said, what's that? And he goes, your guys that fought addiction have come out of are in recovery, and you've come out blowing it out, doing the things that America promises you could have. You're right. We come with baggage. We all come with baggage. The last perfect person that hit this earth, what did we do to him? We crucified him.
Yeah.
I don't want to be perfect. I don't want to be crucified. But when you shared your story with me, I asked myself, I said, why would a man want to get into politics and get in this path that's so successful over here, that's done so much? But people don't understand, when you truly live that American dream and the new American dream, that's go through addiction. Every family is going to suffer that. Every person in this country. You don't come out the other side thinking about yourself anymore. You think about helping others. You think about being an example. You think about, and you think everybody's going to be this big celebration, but you walk out in the world and you realize there are more people suffering from this than we even realized. You live an American dream. I don't need to ask the question, why'd you put everything at stake to do this? I know it's your character. But tell the listeners, what made you boldly go over and step into this?
Step into running for governor, or step into saving our country with the election?
Both of them. I think both of them are trying to save the country. We know what's going on. Let's
go back to the election platforms, or I'd have to go all the way back to, I had never voted in my life. I didn't think politics were important, and
right.
I was, I come from a life of addiction, crack cocaine and others, but when I quit everything by the grace of God, January 16, 2009, I came out of that, and of course, and MyPillow I invented in 2004. But I came out of it. I hit the ground running to to build this amazing business and continue on with it. And I was America's darling. As MyPillow exploded and went be this huge, the media would come to me and go, "How many more veterans are you hiring today? How many ex-addicts, second chances? How much money are you giving to Teen Challenge, Union Gospel, Salvation Army, hurricane victims?" And it was, for me, it was evangelizing, bringing people out of addiction to Jesus Christ. That's where I was at. Well, then, you'd have to read my book, but I ended up meeting Donald Trump in August 15th of 2016. And remember, I didn't know a filibuster from a millibuster. I didn't know a Democrat from a Republican. And I could say I had never voted. And it was a private meeting, one-on-one. And 45 minutes, I walked out of that office. He had no other agenda. It was just him and I, that he wanted opinions from me, like, hey, you make your product here. How is that working out? Making everything here in the U.S. And we did talk about addiction. They said, "Mike, whatever you do, don't tell them you were a crack addict." One of the first things I said to him, I was a crack addict, and I kind of looked at him. And he said, we talked, I said, "I'm going to have the Lindell Recovery Network." I said, .org is going to help millions of addicts get out of addiction and get to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And then he said, "I'm going to stop the drugs pouring in." And he was telling me, it was just common sense things he talked about. And I went out of that meeting, and I made my wife and I went. We went and talked to his employees, and every one of them had, because I said, "Is this real? Is this?" This guy, I'd never met a president or a president candidate before, but this guy would be great. And went and talked to his employees, and a lot of them, and they all said the same thing: great man, great leader, but they all had a personal story how he had helped them. And nobody knew. It was just amazing. So I went back to Minnesota. I ended up doing a press release to the media that loved me, saying, "Hey, I met Donald Trump." Didn't even tell him what we talked about. And that day was the first day of attacks. It was massive. One of the headlines, Mike Lindell, or one of the things, Mike Lindell is the biggest drug dealer in Minneapolis, my drug dealers back in the day, they go, "Mike never dealt a drug in his life. He tried to rid Minneapolis of drugs by doing them all." And but there was this big false thing, just this attack that came. They took MyPillow from an A+ to an F, the Crooked Better Business Bureau,
Wow.
and it was all an attack. Well, then you fast forward, of course, then I was all in, and I went all in. I said, and then, of course, I learned that politics affects everything we do. Everything. It affects the American dream. It affects everything that we have. After the 2020 election, I did my own investigations, and I'm going, okay, it's impossible that, like in Minnesota, like 10,000 people, who's with me? Let's go into Wisconsin, commit a crime, and all vote for Biden. That's not realistic. And when I got my evidence, the first evidence I got on January 9th of 2021, sure enough, it was all done with computers. There's other things too, but this was the massive scale with these voting machines, and I had the answers. And I'm going, if you've seen what I've seen and know what I know, I would want anyone to never give up, because you're going to lose everything anyway if we don't secure our elections. That's when I went all in. It didn't matter. I knew, I look back now and say, okay, I've lost all my money, hundreds of millions of dollars. MyPillow has just been decimated. And the media has asked me, if you turn back time, I'll bet you'd do it differently, wouldn't you? Not a chance. I wouldn't change one single thing, because we wouldn't have anything anyway. It would be gone. And they, I'll give you an example. I had Venezuela on the phone back then at the underground in January of 21. And a lot of them were in tears. They're going, "Please, please don't give up. Please don't give up." This is when I was the one in the news just getting hammered with the voting machines and lawfare. And they said, "Please don't give up. Our country was taken in the early 2002, and we were praying that would happen to the United States someday, so that it would open up to all this election fraud and these takeover." And I promised them I would never give up. And And look what just happened a few months ago with the Venezuela going in there, that they Smartmatic gets charged and all these things. So it's one thing, and it's like, I'll give you another example. The hurricane victims, when here in Florida, where I'm at right now, this was in, I think, the fall of 2022, and I came down to Florida. There had been this massive hurricane, and it was a trailer court. Most of them were Hispanic, and this trailer court down here was you could take your boat. It looked like a little river, or like the road was in the middle, and then there were dikes on both sides, and those dikes were all their worldly possessions piled up on both sides of the road. And we were praying with them and talking to them, and giving them pillows and blankets and stuff. But every one of them, almost every one of them, we had interpreters too for some, and they were saying, it was bringing them hope. They just want to, keep going, keep going. And their hope was, if we save our country and save the American dream, as we all know, the nonsensical things that we were going through then in 22 and 23, that was destroying the American dream. These guys knew, as long as we saved the American dream, they could get their stuff back. It didn't mean anything. If you lose the big picture, they had come from places that you don't have that like we have here, the freedoms we have here. And I just remember that meant so much to me. And but with your question going, kind of a long answer, why did I jump into that is because there is nothing more important than politics that affects everything we do in our daily lives. And if you don't have people elected instead of being selected, it's over. Back then, I also said that, AI, this is 5 years ago, and I was so concerned. I used to tell everyone, we're coming into an age with this artificial intelligence and the technology that if evil uses that, it's over. If we don't have people that are elected by the people, for the people, and that are regulating these things, it's over. There is no tomorrow. And we're seeing that now. You're seeing stuff, social media and all this, with all this AI. Think what you could do if evil gets a hold of that. They could make me committing a crime, and I'd be in jail going, that wasn't me. I wasn't even there. This is, people don't perceive what's real or not real anymore. And it's and then you have other things too. One of the things like Minnesota I said back then, it's a Trojan horse for Sharia law and the takeover of our country. And back then you couldn't say it because it was, boy, you're racist, you're this and that. Well, you know what? With all the crime now in Minnesota, this all came out, one of the best things that's ever happened to our country. This is by them stealing 18 and 20 billion. I look at things, it's a great thing. Why? Because it's going to open up this onion, and people are going to see and say, wow, we've got a bigger problem. We got to get rid of Sharia law. We've got to ban it. We're going to be like all these other countries overseas. There's so many problems that are going on, like in a big race that evil's trying to take us in all these different categories, but we know who wins in the end.
Guys, Kim, does what's going on in Minnesota make you feel better being out in California? It's like, so much focus was put on California, we didn't pay attention to what was going on in Minnesota, and people like Mike were screaming and yelling, saying, hey guys, focus up here. And now all of a sudden we're like, where did this come from? What does that make you feel in California?
Well, I'll tell you what, first of all, I had clients in Minnesota in my breakthrough coaching business, and I was hearing all about the craziness in Minnesota. So when I heard Mike was running for governor of Minnesota, I was like, hallelujah. Minnesota has a chance of being saved right now. So hearing all of the corruption and the fraud that's come about with things like the Leering Center in Minnesota, hearing about that for me was encouraging because, one, it was being exposed. Nick Shirley, the teams over there, I knew it was only a matter of time that it was coming to California. So you took the hits first, Mike. You guys took the hits, but it needed to come out. People need to understand how corrupt It's not just Minnesota. It's not just California. It's in your backyard. So I think that people are awakening to it. And I want to point one thing out that I think is super important. When we're looking at Mike running for the governor of Minnesota, we need to understand that Mike's put a stake in the ground for truth. That's why he can do what he's doing. He knows his North Star. He knows where he's going, and he knows what it's going to take. Now, there was a moment, I was running the Taker elections back here in Southern California. We had a live event with Tina Peters, Mike Lindell, the CSPOA, Doug Frank, and Mike was scheduled to Zoom in. We planned this out, and in this big event on stage, Mike was scheduled. We were so excited, and I introduced Mike Lindell, and Mike wasn't there for a moment. Now, this is what I want people to get. Mike wasn't there because there was a little bit of confusion of time. Immediately, Doug got on the phone with him. Tina got on the phone and said, "Where are you?" Mike was about to take off in a plane, and do you know what Mike did? Mike stopped the plane, said, "Guys, stop. I need to be in an interview with Kim Yeater." Right? He stopped the plane. So what that tells you is Mike is a man of his word. Mike is integrity. If we're going to take the states back and take this country back, it's going to require integrity and character. And I really believe, Mike, that you are going to set the precedence for what's possible in this state for people to stand in the gap and take their states back. So thank you for running, Mike.
Well, thank you so much. And that's like you said one thing there, that with all these, it's in everybody's backyard. This is not just swing states, or this is not just California, Minnesota, Colorado. This is Maine, Alaska, Florida. You know what? Some of the biggest pushback I had, everybody, which with the fraud was right there, were red states. Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas going on right now. Shame on you, Sarah Sanders Huckabee. Shame on you. South Dakota. I could listen. Everyone's going, "What, Mike? Are you kidding?" This was my biggest surprise, by the way, of all the work done for the last 5 years and everything. I put on 750 hours in my plane when I still had it before I had to sell it, going around and meeting politicians and say, "Hey, here's what happened in your state." And then you get one of the first states I'll never forget. I meet Alabama, John Merrill, their Secretary of State, a Republican. And I go in there and I say, "Hey, John, you have 4,662 people that voted in Alabama here, according to your records, that are over 110 years old." And he looked at me, he goes, "Well, Mike, we live pretty good here in Alabama." And I'm going, "Okay, that's not funny, John." And I said, "What are you going to do about it?" He just doubled down and put in more machines to monitor machines. But my point being is, it's in everybody's backyard. And I've said, they go, "Why are you helping California? Why are you doing this?" Well, wherever we get a breakthrough that's good, you got to duplicate it across the country. And California has been done, way more has been done there and progress being made than your Alabamas or your Louisianas or your Arkansas, where we've had some of the biggest blocks in history. And so anyone that says, "Well, or our state's more corrupt than your state," what the thing about Colorado and California and Minnesota, these are the blessings we have as a country, that we're so blessed to have those three states. Why? Because they're all getting exposed for all the fraud. That's an example of what you don't want in our lives here. This is an example of what we don't want this to go this direction, and all this nonsense and this craziness, men and women's sports and all this stuff, tampons in men's bathrooms in Minnesota with Tim Wall. These are the things that people have to see the bad and see that, so they know that, so we can make a shift and you can pull people over to common sense solutions. And so I look at all these things as a blessing. And then you see, when people see the light and see how bad it is, like right now in Minnesota, if we don't win this election, this midterm, you're going to see a mass exodus out of Minnesota. People are going to be moving. They can't take all these piled on taxes and this craziness that's going on there. And so that's another reason, Minnesota's right now like the tip of the spear for the country. which I will say, everybody, this is one thing where if you can go to MikeLindellGov.com, I am polling ahead of all these other Republicans right now. And these, you have uniparty ones, you have people in there. Well, who's running? Well, the Speaker of the House has been around for, Republican that's been around for over a year. Well, a couple of years. Well, under her watch, all this fraud came. Well, if it was me, I'd be shouting from the top of the rooftops going, hey, look at this, So, but that's one of the reasons I'm running is just, I feel I'm the only one that can win because we can raise money nationally and you're going to need that. And I have a great marketing plan. We had 250,000 people in Minnesota that voted for Donald Trump in 2020. They didn't even bother to vote in 2022. And people need to be educated that this is critical. This isn't just Minnesota. If we don't win these midterms, I'm telling you, everybody, it's pretty much over because all the stuff that's been done that's good to twist that away from evil, we could all be gone in an instant. It would all be in vain. And I don't know, but I do know this. Maybe it's going to take them to try and steal more things so that we can finally open up and everybody sees the corruption as we try to dig into more and more. And maybe it takes another theft of an election. We don't know. We'll have to see what God's will is.
Mike, you bring up some valid points, and I want our listeners to really hear this and understand. Just as Georgia, how long? Let me ask you this: how long has Minnesota been a heavy Democratic state?
1972, our presidential. We have not had a Republican voted for a Republican president in 1972. We were the only state that didn't vote for Ronald Reagan. But that was because our candidate was from Minnesota.
Almost as long as Miami had a Republican mayor in charge, and we've just recently seen a shift there go to Democrat. Georgia is similar to Minnesota, and I was saying to Kim on another show, do you think that the Democratic Party, I grew up in a Democratic field. We voted for Carter. We were out there pushing for Carter. I'll never forget my mom. I was a little kid, and she's like, you got to go knock on doors and get the word out, get people to support him. We're going to have our Georgia guy, our governor is going to be the next president. All of a sudden, 1980, my mom, I go out and go, we're going to get to knock on doors again. We get to go talk to people about Carter. I said, I get the free peanuts. I can't wait. I love these peanuts. My mom looked at me and said, no, we're going to go talk about another man, a man called Ronald Reagan. He's a good looking man and he's an amazing actor. And I said, Mom, but what about the Georgia guy? She goes, we didn't do too well there. We're going to shift. And I watched the shift come. But at that time, I also watched the shift. The old Democratic Party that we knew, the one that was that people are seeing. And, it was the working man. It was God. It was going out and making America, standing strong for America. That's not the Democratic Party today. They're going to people, minorities. They're going to others, making them think, oh, the Republicans are racist. They hate you. They did this. Well, actually, the Republicans are the ones that freed the slavery and stopped the slavery. This is not the Democratic Party that we saw 20, 30 years ago. Is the Minnesota any different?
No, you're exactly right. And that's part of my campaign that I'm going to do is, and I want to go ahead and tell this because every candidate should do this in this country if they want to win. They need to hear, like the Democrats in northern Minnesota, they're traditional Democrats. But they don't realize all the horrific socialist things going on in Minneapolis and stuff. It doesn't affect them, maybe, right? So they're stuck in this. Let's just keep voting Democrat. Well, I'm going to be doing these. My commercials and infomercials are going to be doing one thing, and let's say that it's those Democrats in northern Minnesota. Okay, that vote traditional. I will be doing infomercials and commercials with them in it, the ones that are going to vote for Mike Lindell. Let's say, I'm going to vote for Mike Lindell because, and then they put their reasons out. Now, then you're talking, you have a like person telling the other like people. Let's say it's in Minneapolis and I get my friends down there, the blacks that actually live there, And they're so upset with what's going on down there in Minneapolis with the protesters and stuff. But they're down there, and I have so many of them that they're going to go, we're voting for Mike Lindell because of this, this, and this. Now they're hearing it from themselves. It's not me going, hey, you guys, I'm going to change all this for you. The Democrat Party has changed. It's bad. It's bad. You're speaking into a it's a lot easier if one of their own says that. You follow me? It's so powerful. This is marketing 101. Let's say it's suburban housewives, and let's say I don't care whoever's out there listening here as a candidate. I'm going to go to the suburban housewives. I'm going to find the ones that are voting for me. I'm going to film them and do, why are you voting for me? Why are you voting for Mike Lindell? And they're going to say it, and guess where all that marketing is going to go? All the suburban housewives are going, hey, we just learned something about, what Mike Lindell's going to do for us, or why why our like-minded people are doing this. And you can do that within the farmers in Minnesota. I've met with them. I'm going to do it with the farmers. The farmers saying, hey, we met with Mike Lindell. He's going to do this, or I'm voting for Mike Lindell because of this. And you give it to all the other farmers. They need to hear it from their own. It's way more powerful than any ads you could ever make, ever. When I did MyPillow for years, I didn't just when we had hosts. The host had, you couldn't just say, hey, I want to sell MyPillow. You got to get the products, try them, come back to us. And if there was something wrong, maybe you were fitted wrong or something, but maybe you needed a different loft, whatever it was. But when you came back and you said, this changed my life, now that host is out there telling all his audience, hey, this is the best thing since sliced bread. This is the best thing ever. It's not Mike Lindell telling them that. It's the person they trust. You follow me? Very powerful. And but you're just, you nailed it in order to educate the Democrats, because it's no longer that party. That ship sailed. There's that ship is long gone. If you didn't have voter fraud in this country, by the way, we're 68% red, everybody. 68%. And how do I know that? And believe me, it actually came from Florida when Miami-Dade County was won by DeSantis. I doubted that. I said, okay, something happened there, right? Something happened there. Okay, well, we went into it and we looked into these counties with cast vote records. There was no machine manipulation in that here in Florida at that time. This was what would have been the 2022 election, and the media says Mike Lindell says DeSantis there was fraud. No, I didn't say. I said there was no fraud. A cast vote record either shows computer manipulation or it doesn't. There's no in between. And so there was no fraud here in that. Basically they said, hey, we're not going to do anything with the Florida race with DeSantis. So we finally had an example of what would life be without any fraud in the election, i.e. computer manipulation. And we extrapolated across the whole United States. 68%. Places that were blue were purple. Places that were purple were red. Places like Arkansas and stuff that were bright red were so red you could blinded you, right? And this is where we're at in this country. So, if you secure our elections, but until that time is there, it's like the president when he went out too big to rig. We've all got to think of different ways you got to overwhelm the cheat. And it's very hard because they have with the computer age now, but we can do it because if it shows up, it'll be deviations you wouldn't believe that will show up this time around. The public would demand you open this up. So, but the perfect example is Democrats that voted Democrats all their life. One of the commercials I did for the president in 2020, was it 2024? It was here in it was in Minnesota actually. We had a round table. There was 20 Democrats there, and I came up with the commercial. We went around and said, "You voted Democrat all your life. Why are you switching?" And that what came out of their mouth was very powerful. It was epic. So that's that's a giveaway for all the candidates watching here. Do that, you will win.
Mike, yeah, and I want to say this with the baggage thing. I heard that when I ran for office, when I ran the first time, I actually bought into it. And I had someone look at me and say, you're just going to have to look for something else. Your baggage is just too heavy and too big. And I started looking, and when I got out of treatment, I looked at everybody and I realized we all have baggage. The only difference between me and them is I've acknowledged my baggage, I've worked on improving it, and I've allowed it to shape me and form me into being and becoming a better person. I'm very aware of it. I've got 14 years in sobriety. The baggage of me having an addiction now has caused me to stand stronger, be more accountable, more transparent.
Right.
I love that about you.
Yeah, but when I was saying baggage, it's different what I'm saying now. The whole country knows about the addiction that I said I was a crack addict, working across the TV. That's not the baggage that they're talking about in Minnesota. They're talking about the election, the conspiracy theory, Mike Lindell, the baggage of the election crime, and that's what I said before. That's actually a strength because I know where all the receipts are in Minnesota. I know where the fraud is. We have all three companies, and we have Hart, Dominion, and ES&S, which is 95% of all the machines in the country. And if you win the primary in Minnesota, you have access to the source code. There's many things I'm doing. That's an advantage. I come with the same baggage as Donald Trump when you talk about we never stopped talking that the 2020 election was stolen, and we've got to get to same-day voting, paper ballots, hand counting. Him and I were in lockstep. That's the baggage I'm talking about. And then they said, well, Mike, and also, Mike, you're so branded with Donald Trump. Donald Trump won. Is it so bad that I'm a good friend and that I'm branded? I mean, I don't agree with everything he does, but I'll tell you what, I'm a businessman. Be very similar against all odds that he won the second term. Everyone said it can't be done. Even his first term, it can't be done. It's impossible. Remember all the thing with the Democrats and all the fake news people? This will never happen. Donald Trump, even about you will never be president. That's one thing you won't be. And never, 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 right? Well, this would be very similar in Minnesota when you're up against this giant of Amy Klobuchar who gave up her seat in fear, and they stick her in to run for governor. Well, let's not forget all the baggage she has on her that people don't know about when you talk about baggage. Remember, Amy Klobuchar was the most outspoken Democrat in the country against the voting machines. I don't know if people realize that. In the movie Kill Chain, Amy Klobuchar, she named the machine companies. They got to go. They control our elections. But she didn't get sued. And all of a sudden, she flip-flopped. Now, all of a sudden, they're okay, Amy? They're okay? And you guys, what's going to come out about her, remember, all this fraud in Minnesota, this 18 billion, now it's up to about 25 billion. Yeah. That was under her watch, too. She knew about this, you guys. So this will be, that spread right now that there was before was impossible. Well, I'm telling you right now, it's very, very possible. And I really believe that it's going to be like you've seen in the president's elections. You're going to see things happen. They're going, wow, what a miracle. What a miracle. Because this is it. It's not, can you win? We have to win.
Yes.
We have to. This isn't a will. We have to.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, we're at the top of the hour, but I do want to say this and make this point to the listeners. This show is themed on why Florida is the model state of the country. We talk about all the great things in Florida. We talk about all the great things we're doing. The reason we're such a great state is we're made up, this state's probably made up of more people than this country is when you look at it as far as diversity. Maybe not the numbers, but definitely the diversity. We have people from every state living in this country. There's two reasons why I say this. Number one, we need to be ambassadors. We need to be role models. We need to be walking the talk that we talk. We want the rest of the country to be like Florida. We need to put people in office like Mike Lindell in the state of Minnesota. We need to support. We need to send that money. We need to help. We need to tell our loved ones. A lot of people live here that still have property in Minnesota. We need to speak up and be strong, because I guarantee you what happens in Minnesota, what happens in California, there's not a wall built around those states. It will filter over and it will come to the next state. And then it's like a disease. It'll keep affecting the states. It'll go through them. we need to support and stand strong. We need to walk the talk that we have. And one of the other things that, Mike, you said that was very unique, if Floridians are so exhausted of so many people coming from other states wanting to try to change it, damn, help those other states become safe and similar to Florida so people will stay there and they won't be exiting it like you're talking about. If we want to be the model state, let's put people like you that see that want that make Minnesota such a great state to live in. We now all of a sudden have a show called Let's Make Minnesota the Model State of the Country. That's the key stuff that we need to be doing. And Mike, I want to thank you for stepping out and being like that. Kim, same thing with you in California. Love to ask you two guys to let our listeners know. Kim, how can our listeners find you and listen to your show?
You can find me at takeyourpowerbackshow.com. And for all the work we're doing in the state of California with Take Our California Back, you can go to takeourcaliforniaback.com, giving the power back to we the people, election transparency and election reform.
Mike, it's certainly exciting to see someone like you running for governor. You're pushing the values. You've been a big part of Florida. You've been a big part of saving this country. You've stood up when nobody else did. How can the listeners from all across the country and in the world that are hearing this show, how can they support you and help you become the next governor of Minnesota?
Well, it's MikeLindellGov.com. It's MikeLindellGov.com. And we are hitting the ground running. I'm going right against Amy Klobuchar. You're going to see our marketing plan everywhere, but I do need your help. I know they asked me in Minnesota, they go, well, Mike, all your money's gone. What are you going to do for your campaign? Well, interestingly enough, in Minnesota, you can't support your own campaign anyway. It's very little, but I'm probably the poorest governor ever to run, but that's not going to stop me from winning and getting the job done, everybody. So it's MikeLindellGov.com. And if you can't afford to put anything in help out now, spread the word. Spread it far and wide on all your platforms because we have to win. And I know one thing, I will be working 18 hours a day for you every single day to win. I just need the support at MikeLindellGov.com.
Mike, thank you for joining us, and thank you for stepping out there boldly. As we've seen on the news, so much is going on in Minnesota, and it's affected us. This is our money, guys. This is not money just made up somewhere. This is money that you as residents of every state in the country send to the federal government that has gone back to stuff that's so shady, it's unbelievable. We need to stand up, stand strong. Just like the Senate race in Georgia a few years ago, these governor races are just as important. We need the majority of governors being conservative, being America focused, America first. And Mike Lindell is probably the most American first candidate that you could have in any governor race. We want you in Minnesota. We're looking forward. Good luck. And I encourage everybody to get out there and support you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Remember, Florida, we want to make America see that we're the model state. Let's walk our talk and let's support people. Let's support these great people that are getting out there running and fighting for our country, not just their state, not just their communities, but our country. Mike Lindell for governor of Minnesota. We're proud to have you on. Kim Yeater, thank you for Take Your Power Back in California. Keep standing strong out there. We need a strong border. And have a great weekend. This is why Florida is such the greatest state and why America is the greatest country in the world, because we have patriots all across our country, not just Florida, that make it the greatest place to live, work, shop, and play. Have a great weekend, guys.